Zake was brutally assaulted and is now hospitalized. This member of parliament has been beaten and injured many times by the regime, and now he's hospitalized. What was most interesting in this election was that this time the internet, unlike in January, was not cut off. So that was actually helpful in terms of collecting the evidence to show the election fraud that the regime is trying to carry out, which of course the NUP leadership is here today to reject. At an early stage after the polling ended, a privately developed voting app called YouVote was able to capture information from the declaration of results forms, which are the tallies of the total votes earned by each candidate at each of the voting precincts. And the information from YouVote showed that Harriet Nakwede was clearly winning by more than 14,000 votes. By the time the regime's election commission, or so-called election commission, announced the results, the candidate for the ruling National Resistance Movement party of dictator General Yoweri Museveni, Andrew Mwanga, had 31,830 votes, and the candidate Harriet Nakwede of the NUP party had 31,308. Let me repeat that figure one more time. And if you have a pen or pencil, please scroll it down. The candidate of the ruling party was given 31,830 votes. Listen carefully to the last three digits, 830. Harriet Nakwede was given 31,308, 380. And if you look carefully, you will see that this was a very lazy effort at rigging. The numbers 830, which are the last three digits of Mwanga's alleged results, was simply switched around, the last three digits. And that is how Harriet Nakwede ended up with 31,308. But other individuals who are here today will talk about the details of the rigging. We'll go to the details that have now been compiled in a tally sheet and a spreadsheet based on the information compiled from the YouVote app. I will not take any much more time because I want us to leave sufficient time for journalists to ask questions. And I will encourage every individual that speaks to keep it concise and brief so that we can really get to the reporters, because that is the function of a press conference. I would just like to make one more point before I ask my co-host, David Steele, if you would like to say a few introductory words before we invite the main speakers, including the new party president, Bobi Wine. I would like to make the suggestion that perhaps the United States is now taking a more interested and closer look at election rigging and election theft in Uganda because of its own experience with the recent incident, the January 6th incident in Washington, D.C., when supporters of a particular individual tried to disrupt the normal, smooth transfer of presidential powers. I think Americans now have a better and clearer understanding of what it means to live in a country where an individual illegally holds on to power. And the United States did make a strong statement, which we must recognize, when after the so-called elections of January 14 in Uganda, which most Ugandans believe was won by Bobi Wine, who is considered by many the legitimately elected president of Uganda, the United States did issue a very important statement. The United States said the election was neither free nor fair, which is a clear indication that the United States does not recognize General Yoweri Museveni as the legitimate president of Uganda. However, there's still some shortcomings, and the leadership of the new party will today elaborate on what further actions they would like to see from the international community and the United States, in addition to providing the evidence that show conclusively that the by-election was rigged and that Harriet Nakwede is indeed the rightful winner of these elections. So before we invite the speakers, I will now turn it over briefly to my co-host, David Steele. David, do you have a few words to share? David, I think you're muted.
Thank you so much, Comrade Milton, and welcoming all those of you who are joining us this afternoon, evening, wherever you are logged in from, to this online press conference about the by-election fraud in Kayunga. As Professor Milton has quite articulately expressed, it is evident that the regime is determined to stay in power at whatever cost. And it's no longer a case of how smart they are at rigging elections, but more a case of what can you do if we decide to rig the elections so blatantly. Later on this afternoon, like Professor Milton has said, we are going to have a number of distinguished speakers, including His Excellency Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu and the Secretary General of the NUP party. And we do invite you to pay close attention to the message, because at the end of the day, this is our opportunity to let the world know how blatant and the impunity with which the regime is operating at currently in Uganda. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I am David Steele, the founder of Uganda is Bleeding, which is an online demonstration and protest platform. We stand together in solidarity with Ugandans every Saturday at 2 p.m. GMT. So we'd like to invite those of you who are interested in standing with the people of Uganda to join us every Saturday. Over to you, Comrade Milton.
Thank you so much, David. So let's get straight into the press conference then. We invite the first speaker, who is Harriet Nakwede, the candidate who actually, we believe, won the by-election in Kayunga. The floor is now yours. Harriet?
Yes, good evening, Professor. I'm so happy to be hosted here this evening. Once again, my name is Nakwede Harriet. The duly elected LOC5 chair, Kayunga, from the recently concluded by-election. I want to thank you for the opportunity that you have given to Uganda. I've read something interesting where you said, is it Uganda is bleeding? I'm happy to hear that as Kayunga is bleeding, Uganda is bleeding, and the entire world has come to notice that Kayunga is bleeding, and therefore there, where you are, you're also experiencing the bleeding of our people. I've been a candidate, just like you've mentioned, in an election that was characterized by brutality by the NRM government, which most of us believe is an imposter, especially considering the way the general elections of 2021 were conducted and rigged in the same way the ones of Kayunga have been rigged. As the people of Kayunga, we believe in change. We believe in the voice of the people. This is why even as we are going to participate in as you are going to engage in this election, we knew that when the voice of the people of Kayunga speak, Genome 7 and these people would be in position to listen and understand. Recently, on the 14th of December, that was the last day of our campaigns. The main candidate, Genome 7, came to campaign for the junior candidate in the race. What surprised most of us was the statement that he made, that even if you dance several times, the NRM at the end of the day will decide who will win. We thought it was a joke said, but by the appearance of that, what transpired in the whole process, we knew the old man was meaning what he said. It began with torture, arresting our people, arresting our coordinators, many members of parliament, and local leaders from different areas who had come to kind of give us more support, backup, were arrested, We were beaten on the 14th day when the president, actually when General Museveni was to come and campaign for his candidate, we were beaten. You mentioned Honorable Zake, who is right now still hospitalized. Many of us are still nursing wounds from the illegitimate government of General Museveni. I want to talk about strictly about what happened on the 16th day, very early in the morning at around 6:30 to 7. Voting in Uganda is supposed to begin at 7. But as our people were going, we had curfew that was only affecting the opposition, us. So whenever people moved outside to be deployed, our people were picked. However, the NRM agents were not picked anywhere. So by the time our people reached different polling stations, we realized the ballot boxes were already stuffed. And by a gesture of complaining, asking the presiding officers what had happened, how the boxes could be full even before the time of voting had started, most of our people were beaten. I have cases of a polling station called Kayunga, where the old man who was our agent was beaten just because he was questioning how a box can be full by even before opening of a polling station. So even when we went to the tally center, but before the tally center, we also witnessed incidences at different polling stations where people could come in a drone with guns, scare the crowds at a polling station, and in broad daylight, people go and put ballots in a box. That's what exactly happened with our people being picked from the polling stations. So when we came to the tally center, we had collected almost all our DRR forms, and our team was busy at our tally center doing the tallying. Despite all the rigging that was witnessed during day and in the morning hours, our team was winning. Just like you mentioned, we're winning with over 14,000 votes. So when we were in the tally center, tallying was done. But even with all the irregularities, our candidate, actually me, the NUP candidate, was still winning until they could not do anything more. What they had to do was just to go on and declare Mwonge with the magic figure that you have also looked at, because the figures, when you look at the last 3 digits, there is a lot of magic that was applied.
Right.
Surprisingly, the chairman of the so-called independent electoral commission was there witnessing and watching whatever took place. And after declaring their winner, they had to run and go out of the tally center without even giving us the sheets that we were supposed to pick as candidates. With this, I don't know how much time I have.
Yes, if you can try to summarize it, because we want to get to the questions and answers so journalists can also ask you some questions. So try to summarize it without rushing too much.
All right. With this, we are still on the ground, and we want to appreciate the people of Kayunga and also give them courage, words of courage. We are in a struggle that we know is not going to affect only Kayunga as a district, but a struggle that we know has provided an opportunity for us, first of all, to expose the dictator, show the entire world as is using police, our security agencies, as his own project or as his own company.
Harriet, did we lose you? I think we may have lost Harriet. Okay, you're back. Go ahead. Please try to wrap up. Thank you. Are you on mute? We can't hear you.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes. I was saying that this has provided for us an opportunity to expose Genome 7 and his different people. One, it has exposed the police because, as I was telling you, our campaigns were characterized by brutality, arrests and detention, And remember, as they were arresting our people, the NRM people were freely moving, bribing people, and doing all sorts of irregularities in campaigns. We exposed the Electoral Commission by showing the entire world that even the 2021 elections were rigged, where our legitimate president, our principal, His Excellency Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, was rigged in the same way. Just like we mentioned yesterday in our press conference, we said that the next step that we are taking is to go on and expose the judiciary and also show the entire world that now the junta, the dictator, has taken all that belonged to Uganda and now it belongs to him as an individual.
Okay. Harriet, thank you so much. And obviously we will get back to you during the question and answer with the journalists.
All
We
right.
now move on to David Lewis Rubongoya, who is the Secretary General of the National Unity Platform. The floor is yours, David.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Milton. Where I am, I cannot be able to do the video, so if you bear with me, I'll just do the audio. I hope that's fine.
Yes, we can hear you.
I think Comrade Nakwede has summarized everything that happened, and because there are many speakers, I'll not say much. I just want to emphasize that the blatantness with which they did this kind of rigging is unprecedented. And for us, we are very, very worried for our country, because I think you can say that this is the most rigged election in history. I don't know what more anybody can do to rig an election. Actually, if you call it rigging, it seems to be an understatement, because here we were at the Tally Center with clear lead, over 14,000 votes ahead of the NRM candidate. They tried to fidget with the numbers at the Tally Center, and even when they tried to fidget with the numbers, we have the voice of the returning officer reading all the results she read. Still, we were about 9,000 votes ahead, even after she had changed some of the results and read different things. Our agents at the Tally Center tried to protest, and what happened was that the police pushed them away. And if you saw the kind of deployment that was in Kayunga in the lead up to the election, with armored vehicles, military vehicles parked everywhere, soldiers in droves and droves filling this district. And of course, if you look at the voter turnout, it was low. And in part, the reason why people do not turn out to vote is because of the intimidation. Where a situation where you have the military, the police taking over an election, people look everywhere and their guns. So what do you expect these women in the villages to do, the men in the villages to do, the young people who are trying to come out and exercise their right to vote? And of course, as Comrade Harriet has indicated, just the night before the election, so many of our people were arrested, our polling agents were arrested, the members of parliament who we had deployed to, supervise the different electoral areas were arrested. And we were able to secure bail for about 121 of them. But as I speak, some are still in different prisons. So it's very, very unfortunate. And for me, what worries me is that now the dictatorship has reached a point of saying, what can you do? As the previous speaker said, what can you do? I mean, this was daylight robbery of the victory, usurpation of the voice of the people. And so we call upon the world to stand with Uganda as we try to demand for better, as we try to see that our country is redeemed from the oppressive rule.
Thank you, David.
Thank you so much.
So, David, while I have you, I guess a listener could pose the question, what are some of the specific issues that the NUP party would like the international community to undertake? David? I think we may have lost David.
We're just unmuting him. Sorry, Comrade Milton.
I'm there now.
Yes,
so
go ahead.
What's the question again?
No, if a listener is listening, let's say an American, what specific actions would the NUP party want, specifically the United States, to do? as part of the international community?
Yeah, so I'm glad that you recognize some of the steps that have been taken by the United States in the wake of a rigged election in January. And
Yes.
what we've been saying is just essentially is that you should stop funding our operation. You know, the United States government continues to support the military regime in Uganda with billions of money, which money is used, of course, to oppress the people of Uganda. Sometimes they make the argument that, you know, we no longer give money directly to the government, but you know, when you continue supporting the military, when you continue supporting the regime in any other way, then it has enough money to use to buy weapons, to, you know, do patronage, you know, rig votes the way it happened. I believe that most of these officers who engage in these kinds of things, who overtake democracy, are paid by the regime to do this. So first and foremost, we think that the United States government, and indeed all countries in the world which believe in democracy, should stop recognizing the illegitimate rule of General Museveni and his people, and ensure that more sanctions are put in place, including sanctions under the Magnitsky, against all those who are undermining democracy in Uganda, who are violating human rights with impunity, and other things. So we think sanctions can play a role, but most importantly, denying the illegal regime legitimacy. I think that is, we want the regime to be isolated, because you cannot have a regime which does these kinds of actions blatantly, still being recognized by many, many governments. We think that is wrong, that's reprehensible.
Thank you, David. We will keep it moving. So we will now go to the leader of the NUP party himself, Robert Kyagulanyi, more popularly known as Bobi Wine, and many Ugandans believe the legitimately elected president of Uganda from the outcome of the January 14, 2021 election. The floor is yours, Bobi Wine.
Thank you very much for having me, Professor Alimadi, and I'm sending greetings to all of you comrades here. The issues have been detailed by Comrade Nakwede, who was the candidate in the recently concluded Kayunga by-election, where it is clear that she won. We are not just saying she won, but it's clear that she won. But again, what happened in Kayunga recently goes further to confirm what happened in January this year in Uganda, where the internet was switched off, all our campaign team arrested, and even when all that happened, we still floored General Museveni, and he ordered Justice Yabakaba, who is the head of the Electoral Commission, to simply announce him as winner. Now, this played again in Kayunga recently, where amid this intimidation, having put me under house arrest, blocked me from campaigning, where General Museveni was going to campaign using taxpayers' money, having put to jail, having jailed members of parliament, all the leaders that we sent to supervise the vote. Still, the people of Kayunga stood their ground. They did what we encouraged them to do. They were vigilant, they supervised the vote, and even if there was so much ballot stuffing, still Harriet Nakwede Kafero emerged winner. Unfortunately, General Museveni would not take that. Like Comrade Nakwede said, having announced that whatever the circumstances, the NRM would decide who would be the leader of Kayunga district, not the people of Kayunga district. So consequently, they announced the wrong person, that they had won. This goes further to just highlight a few of the atrocities that are being committed in Uganda, the absolute disrespect of democracy, the disregard of the rule of law, and General Museveni imposing himself and all the leaders that he chooses for the people of imposing them on the people of Uganda. Like our Secretary General just mentioned, I will only reassert that we are calling upon the international community not to constantly come off as a partner in crime. We are fighting not only the impunity of General Museveni, we are fighting not only the Uganda police that is supposed to take care of the people, but instead is oppressing the people. we are not only fighting the Ugandan military, but we are fighting all that is supporting the NRM regime. While we fight the corrupt dictator, we're also fighting the grenades that are coming from France. We are fighting the guns that are coming from Czech Republic. We are fighting the helicopters that are coming from Russia. We are fighting the cars that are coming from Germany. We are fighting the training that is offered by the United States and the UK. We are fighting the spy network that is provided by Israel. We are fighting the bribes that are provided by the IMF. So we are fighting against our own resources. I want the international community to know that it is the bloodline for General Museveni. General Museveni would not be able to oppress the people of Uganda. He will not be able to massacre the people of Uganda. His military would not be able to do all the illegal and immoral things that they are doing if they were not supported by the international community. They would not be able to spy, to listen in on, violate our privacy if they were not supported by the Israeli technology. And as all of you are aware that not just we that are fighting for freedom in Uganda, but even the diplomats, nobody is safe under the Museveni dictatorship. So we call upon the international community to remember that we are also human beings, to know that the standard of human rights is not supposed to be measured according to the economy of the country. We are just as human beings as the countries from the development partners. We are just as human as other countries where 2, 3, 4 people are murdered and it is probed to its logical conclusion. While General Museveni is massacring people, while he is detaining political opponents, while he is abusing and violating elections with impunity, he is still being fed by the international community, and that is why we request that it should stop. I thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you so much. Before we move on to the next speaker, who is Joel Senonji, I'd just like to clarify one or two things. Harriet Nakwede spoke of the DR forms. For non-Ugandans who may not be familiar with what that is the declaration of results, which is the tallying of the total votes earned by each candidate in each of the precincts. So that is what she was referring to. Bobi Wine mentioned the spying assisted by Israel. That was a major story recently in the New York Times, when the New York Times reported that with the use of Israeli technology and spyware, the regime was actually conducting spying on the United States Embassy in Kampala, Uganda. So I just wanted to clarify those two items. And now we keep it moving. So we go to Joel Senonji, who is the official spokesperson for the NUP party. Joel, the floor is yours. Do we have Joel?
Yes, Professor. Thank you so much.
Go ahead. Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to be joining you, colleagues here in Uganda from the media that are joining us. But really, my president, Bobi Wine, the Secretary General, and of course our candidate Kayunga have clearly adumbrated what happened. For us, really, in many respects, this vindicates us, because we went through an election in January and it was clear the blatant brutality. People were killed, many were jailed, the vote rigging, ballot stuffing, the loads of monies that were used, and all these different things. We kept talking about these things, but somehow, there are probably those who thought, well, maybe not, but what happened in Kayunga, because now all the attention was on Kayunga, because the January election was a nationwide election. So the cameras, media, and so on were not able to be everywhere, to see that our agents were being arrested, the brutality, ballot stuffing, and so on. There's just a few.
Joel, your connection is not stable, so we are losing you. You're in and out. Yeah, now we can't hear you at all. Joel, I don't know if you can hear me, but we cannot hear you. I think your connection is not stable.
Okay, I can actually hear you loud and clear. There was just
yeah, I'm sorry, we can't hear you clearly, but try again. Let's see how it goes. Continue.
Okay, so really, the point that I was emphasizing is that the Kayunga by-election vindicated us. All that we have been saying, that Museveni deploys brutality, lots of money, the vote rigging and so on, everything got to be seen in clear, broad daylight. And I know Nico is going to display for but also to show here. So we had teams that were at the Tally Center, and they kept hearing this lady who kept giving an update, a lady called Chobutunji Janet. She's the Electoral Commission representative in that district. Mm-hmm. So she kept giving updates, I think hourly or that kind of thing. And they combined all the audios and tabulated what updates she was giving all through. And even that update that she was giving every step of the way till the final one, before they took off about 3 hours to say they are sorting out a couple of things. Yes. Even her voice shows that our candidate Nakwede was by far leading in this election. But Mr. Museveni said, no, I want my candidate to win, and that's the one that will be declared winner. Now, in just 1 minute, one of the things that really have caused Mr. Museveni to have interest in Kayunga,
yes,
you know, lots of mineral resources in that district, and that's why there's been squabbles over the land in Kayunga. The person who was killed, we believe very strongly that the former LC5 chairperson who belonged to NUP was killed. This was a disabled man. And then on this eventful day, very unfortunate event, he was found hanging. Very smart. There was no flakes and so on. This is a man who was using a crutch to walk, but for them to say that he got up a tree and hang himself and so on, absolute hogwash. We believe this man was killed. And the reason why he's killed is because as an NUP leader in that seat, he was frustrating the land grabbing and all the other evil schemes of the regime. And we believe that's why this man was killed. And now Mr. Museveni said, okay, now that this one is out of the way, I must have my candidate there, my person who belongs to the NRM. And that's why it's been a do or die. But I'm glad that the whole world has seen all these things that are happening. And really, on our part, we are reaching out to the international community to say, let's have a focus on Uganda. Mr. Museveni likes to say Uganda is a sovereign state, so we cannot have interference. Yes, we are a sovereign state. But what does sovereignty mean? Does sovereignty mean that the leader of the country can kill, brutalize people in his country, stifle democracy, etc., as the whole world looks on because we are a sovereign state? No, we are part of the international community. And I believe the rest of the world has a responsibility to Uganda. The same way Uganda has a responsibility to the rest of the world. That's why we are in Somalia, in Sudan, and all these different places, doing all manner of things, and yet those are sovereign states. So we are saying what has begun to be done by the US, would like to see that gear engaged a lot more. Would like to see a lot more targeted sanctions. These sanctions actually bite. I know some Museveni officials like to brush these things off and say, well, I don't give a damn about the sanctions and so on, but they bite. And that's why the most recent sanctions on a general called Kaniho, who has meted out untold suffering to Ugandans on behalf of Mr. Museveni, he had to organize some goons to go to the US embassy to protest and so on. It's because these sanctions bite. So they are not in vain. We pray that there gets to be a lot more of the people surrounding Mr. Museveni, the people that are involved in these acts, Electoral Commission officials right from the top. Then they will begin to know that things are serious. Then they'll begin to know that you cannot do whatever you want to do in a manner so wanton. So we hope that the rest of the international community can really extend this help to Ugandans. This really is not for NUP. It is for Ugandans, because it is Ugandans who are being brutalized. It is Ugandans whose democratic space is shrinking by the day. Their voice doesn't count anymore. So we hope that this can be done for the sake of Ugandans. I thank you.
Thank you, Joel. I just want to elaborate on one or two things that Joel also touched upon. He referred to the recent sanctions by the United States against General Belcandijo, who was the leader of what is called the Chieftaincy of Military Intelligence, which essentially is the secret police. And he was personally accused by the Treasury Department that issued the sanctions of participating personally in some of the torture and some of the beatings, which included sexual torture, and in fact, including the killings of supporters of the NUP party or anybody who had criticized the government. And that is what Joel was referring to. He also mentioned the issue of sovereignty, and that the regime says no other country has the right to interfere in the affairs of the regime. But the regime is happy to take $1 billion in US taxpayers' money. And I would hope American citizens would say they do have a right in how their taxpayer dollars is spent once it's sent to Uganda. Now, this time, we would like the technical people led by Dr. Nico to perhaps put out the technical display and show some of the images and walk us through it. And then after that, we will invite Bruce Afran to make some comments, and he is the legal counsel. Dr. Nico, could you and David perhaps walk us through the images, screen sharing? David? Dr. Nico?
Yeah, we're just working through it. Sorry, just give us a
Okay,
moment.
thank you. All right, sisters and brothers, please, I ask for your patience. Just give them a minute. They will screen share. They will explain some of the data. And then we will get the comment from Bruce Afran. And then we'll quickly open it up for questions from members of the media. And I ask members of the media, please identify yourself and your affiliation before you ask your questions. And since this is a press conference, we will only be taking questions from members of the media. So if you are not a member of the media, I would politely ask you to please unraise your hand. If, on the other hand, you're a member of the general public, you're welcome to submit a comment via the chat.
Nico, please, could you should be able to unmute yourself. Apologies about that.
Yes, thank you. Finally, I was able to unmute. So I thank you all for being here and attending this press conference. And let me shortly introduce myself. My name is Nico, and I was the team leader of the UVote team that analyzed the fraud during the 14th January election. And then we had to analyze over 30,000 DORs. And with a team of about 15 or 20 volunteers, we managed to do that. We have shown that Bobi Wine actually won those elections. And all the evidence has been compiled in a report called Rigged that is also shared in chats. Now, when this election took place, this is just one district with 338 polling stations. So it's actually a piece of cake for us. And then when I heard from the team that they were able to collect all the declaration of results forms, and those are the forms that conclude the voting in every polling stations. When I heard that we had gathered almost all of them, I knew that we had a very good case because we would be having all the evidence. And then the first tally results came in on Thursday night, and many Ugandans went to bed very happily because it showed that Harriet had won those elections with 35,000 votes. And so the surprise was so big when the next day, on Friday morning, the Electoral Commission announced a totally different results. And I was totally flabbergasted, because how could they do that? Because all the declaration of results forms are in our hands. And then, fortunately, the principal, Bobi Wine, published those declaration of results forms on his Facebook. And since 338 is not too many, me and a colleague from Germany, we started aggregating those DORs. And I will start sharing my screen to show you in about 10 minutes what we've done. And I think I'm now sharing my screen, and I will go to the main page first. Now, this is a Google document. It's a shared Google document, which means that everyone in the world has access to this document with a special URL, tinyurl.com/Kayunga me and my co-workers have edit rights for that document, and together we have worked on this document to present to you the vote results for Kayunga. And I hope that I will be making it totally transparent to you how this works. And since there is a question section after this, if there's anything that is unclear, please write in the chat your name and affiliation, and we'll give you the floor to ask a question. So we have concentrated on the two major candidates that got 99% of the votes, Andrew Mwonge and Harriet Nakwede. And in this cell, which is cell number E5, it shows our counts based on 330 polling stations, which is 97.6% of all the polling stations. It shows that Andrew Mwonge got 20,367 votes. So that is really based on every polling stations that we typed in manually into this Excel sheet. And Harriet Nakwede, our count gives her almost 35,000. So another number that was announced was just slightly more than 35,000, but that was because they had included a couple of those declaration of results forms more. And so furthermore, we can say that based on the data that we've entered, that Nakwede won 277 polling stations, and 53 were won by Andrew Mwonge. I'm saying one here with quotes because the voter turnout in those polling stations was 10% higher than in the polling stations for Harriet Nakwede, which is an indication for ballot box stuffing. Now, let's see where we get this data from. So let's go to this cell, and it's a reference to another sheet, and that sheet is the tally sheet. So the tally sheet here summarizes all the polling stations. So you can see here many polling stations, and I'm now going upstairs in this sheet to show you the total. So the total for Mwonge is indicated here in yellow. And again, for transparency, everybody can just click here on this total, same number, 20,000. And you see it's highlighted this column here that has all the numbers. So these numbers. So for example, the very first polling station that was entered had 81 votes for Mwonge, 161 for Harriet Nakwede, and the total number of votes for all the candidates was 250. And to make it easy for anyone to find out if this is actually true, it lists here where one can find that DOR. So this DOR is on a Facebook page, this particular Facebook page by Bobi Wine. And because Bobi Wine uploaded batches of 76 DORs, I have indicated the sequential number. So number 1 of this set is the polling station Kayunga. Number 2 is polling station Banda. Number 3 is polling station Kyoto 2. So in this way, we have aggregated just the 3 numbers: votes for Muwonga, votes for Nakwede, and the total number of votes. And so this everybody can access, and they can double check that it is right. Now, Milton, may I ask you, can you just pick a number between 0 and 10, and then I'm going to look up one of these DORs.
9.
Or someone else.
I pick 9.
Okay, pick 9. Then can you please pick one of the sets from 1 to 5?
3.
Okay, so if we go to set number 3, which is this set, polling station 9 is a polling station called Busana. It's a polling station where Muwonga got 27 votes and Harriet got 150. So now I'm switching to Mr. Bobi Wine's Facebook page, which I have open here. And is it now showing also Bobi Wine's Facebook page?
No, we're still just seeing the spreadsheet.
Okay, then I'll have to I have to do new share, and I have to, yes. No
Don't
problem.
lose the data though.
No, I'm still here. So so now we're looking at Bobi Wine's Facebook page.
Yes.
And Bobi Wine has uploaded here set number 1 of DR forms, set number 2 of DR forms, and set number 3 of DR forms. So I'm going to click these DR forms, and now I'm going to scroll through them, and hopefully number 9 is the one that we're looking for. So this is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9. Why did you pick such a high number, Milton? So number 9 is Busana. Luckily, it is the same one. So, and this is how we inspected the number of votes. So I hope this is readable in screen sharing, but what I'm reading here is that Andrew Muwonga got 27 votes and Harriet got 150. So let's double check again with the numbers. So that is the same number. So in this way, we have now verified this particular declaration of results. And if any journalist wants me to do another one in the question section, I'm willing to do so. So this is the first part, and this shows everything about how 14,000 votes were acquired more by Harriet. Now, the interesting question, of course, is where do the difference comes from? Because the tally sheet, we have published a tally sheet, but the Electoral Commission has not published the tally sheets. In the Electoral Commissions, they took many weeks to publish the tally sheet. And usually for district elections, they don't even publish it all. But fortunately, the SG, David Lewis, was insistent with the Electoral Commissions, and they have shared the tally sheet, the official tally sheet with us. Now, I'm going to now share my full screen so that I can share that PDF also with you. So I'm going now here. And is everyone looking at the PDF of Electoral Commission?
Correct.
So now this first page, we already know it. The magic numbers, Andrew Mwonga, 31,830, and Harriet Nakwede, only 3 numbers interchanged. But this document contains the tally sheet. And that is the information that I only got this afternoon. And as a scientist, those numbers made me very enthusiastic, and I started entering those into the tally sheet right away. So we have a comparison. Where does the difference comes from? So now there's a lot of numbers here, and I'm not even sure now which one I should be showing to you.
Well, I think the one that illustrates the most for the audience, Dr. Nico.
Yes. So in our tally sheet, which I'm switching back to, on this tab called polling stations, this afternoon, me and my comrades, we started entering the data, the Electoral Commission data, and the difference. And so, for example, on the very first polling station, Vale East, Mwonga, according to the Electoral Commission, is 70 more votes than what we see on our DOR. So that is very strange. And shortly, I'm going to give you an example of one of them. Because there are some things that me as a scientist just made me flabbergasted. So here we have all the differences. And as you can see, all these zeros means that our DOR coincides with the Electoral Commission DOR. So for me, I know that the data entry has been pretty good. And so that was good. Then I saw this 100 here. So in Nampanyi, 100 more votes in the Electoral Commission sheet. 100. That's 2 booklets, by the way, because the ballots, they are in booklets of 50 ballots. And so when I see 100, I also see 2 booklets of ballots. And we know that in some polling stations, they really did it. So, and then I see another 100 in Kiamongongo. 100, exactly 100 difference between our DOR and the Electoral Commission. And then here, another 100. That is no coincidence. And so actually, if I go through this list of differences, then I have already identified 7 of these. It's really...
They did what we encouraged them to do. They were vigilant, they supervised the vote, and even if there was so much ballot stuffing, still Harriet Nakwede Kafero emerged winner. Unfortunately, General Museveni would not take that. Like Comrade Nakwede said, having announced that whatever the circumstances, the NRM would decide who would be the leader of Kayunga district, not the people of Kayunga district. So consequently, they announced the wrong person, that they had won. This goes further to just highlight a few of the, atrocities that are being committed in Uganda, the absolute disrespect of democracy, the disregard of the rule of law, and General Museveni imposing himself and all the leaders that he chooses for the people of imposing them on the people of Uganda. Like our Secretary General just mentioned, I will only reassert that we are calling upon the international community not to constantly come off as a partner in crime. We are fighting not only the impunity of General Museveni, we are fighting not only the Uganda police that is supposed to take care of the people, but instead is oppressing the people. We are not only fighting the Uganda military, but we are fighting all that is supporting the NRM regime. While we fight the corrupt dictator, we're also fighting the grenades that are coming from France. We are fighting the guns that are coming from Czech Republic, We are fighting the helicopters that are coming from Russia. We are fighting the cars that are coming from Germany. We are fighting the training that is offered by the United States and the UK. We are fighting the spy network that is provided by Israel. We are fighting the bribes that are provided by the IMF. So we are fighting against our own resources. I want the international community to know that it is the bloodline for General Museveni. General Museveni would not be able to oppress the people of Uganda. He will not be able to massacre the people of Uganda. His military would not be able to do all the illegal and immoral things that they are doing if they were not supported by the international community. They would not be able to spy, to listen in on, violate our privacy if they were not supported by the Israeli technology. And as all of you are aware that not just we, they did what we encouraged them to do. They were vigilant, they supervised the vote, and even if they did what we encouraged them to do, they were vigilant, they supervised the vote, and even if there was so much ballot stuffing, still Harriet Nakwede Kafero emerged winner. Unfortunately, General Museveni would not take that. Like Comrade Nakwede said, having announced that whatever the circumstances, the NRM would decide who would be the leader of Kayunga district, not the people of Kayunga district. So consequently, they announced the wrong person, that they had won. This goes further to just highlight a few of the atrocities that are being committed in Uganda, the absolute disrespect of democracy, the disregard of the rule of law, and General Museveni imposing himself and all the leaders that he chooses for the people of imposing them on the people of Uganda. Like our Secretary General just mentioned, I will only reassert that we are calling upon the international community not to constantly come off as a partner in crime. We are fighting not only the impunity of General Museveni, we are fighting not only the Uganda police that is supposed to take care of the people, but instead is oppressing the people. We are not only fighting the Ugandan military, but we are fighting all that is supporting the NRM regime. While we fight the corrupt dictator, we are also fighting the grenades that are coming from France. We are fighting the guns that are coming from Czech Republic. We are fighting the helicopters that are coming from Russia. We are fighting the cars that are coming from Germany. We are fighting the training that is offered by the United States and the UK. We are fighting the spy network that is provided by Israel. We are fighting the bribes that are provided by the IMF. So we are fighting against our own resources. I want the international community to know that it is the bloodline for General Museveni. General Museveni would not be able to oppress the people of Uganda. He will not be able to massacre the people of Uganda. His military would not be able to do all the illegal and immoral things that they are doing if they were not supported by the international community. They would not be able to spy, to listen in on, violate our privacy if they were not supported by the Israeli technology. And as all of you are aware that not just we that are fighting for freedom in Uganda, but even the diplomats, nobody is safe under the Museveni dictatorship. So we call upon the international community to remember that we are also human beings, to know that the standard of human rights is not supposed to be measured according to the economy of the country. We are just as human beings as the countries from the development partners. We are just as human as other countries where 2, 3, 4 people are murdered and it is probed to its logical conclusion. While General Museveni is massacring people, while he is detaining political opponents, while he is abusing and violating elections with impunity, he is still being fed by the international community, and that is why we request that it should stop. I thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you so much. before we move on to the next speaker, who is Joel Senonji, I'd just like to clarify one or two things.
They did what we encouraged them to do. They were vigilant, they supervised the vote, and even if there was so much ballot stuffing, still Harriet Nakwede Kafero emerged winner. Unfortunately, General Museveni would not take that. Like Comrade Nakwede said, having announced that whatever the circumstances, the NRM would decide who would be the leader of Kayunga district, not the people of Kayunga district. So consequently, they announced the wrong person, that they had won. This goes further to just highlight a few of the atrocities that are being committed in Uganda, the absolute disrespect of democracy, the disregard of the rule of law, and General Museveni imposing himself and all the leaders that he chooses for the people of imposing them on the people of Uganda. Like our Secretary General just mentioned, I will only reassert that we are calling upon the international community not to constantly come off as a partner in crime. We are fighting not only the impunity of General Museveni, we are fighting not only the Uganda police that is supposed to take care of the people, but instead is oppressing the people. We are not only fighting the Ugandan military, but we are fighting all that is supporting the NRM regime. While we fight the corrupt dictator, we're also fighting the grenades that are coming from France. We are fighting the guns that are coming from Czech Republic. We are fighting the helicopters that are coming from Russia. We are fighting the cars that are coming from Germany. We are fighting the training that is offered by the United States and the UK. We are fighting the spy network that is provided by Israel. We are fighting the bribes that are provided